Canadian Biotechnology Action Network, or CBAN, member group based in Toronto. Heather is also a longtime volunteer with the CBAN and currently sits on CBAN's steering committee. We have Manuel Gorrin, Director of Mission and Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion at Nature's Path Organic Foods. Manuel has more than 12 years of experience with corporate sustainability, operations, and marketing in large and fast-growing manufacturing industries in both North and Latin America. And Tia Loftsgard, Executive Director of the Canadian Organic Trade Association. Tia's worked in the field of organic and international agricultural trade for over 20 years. She founded the first ever fair trade organic chocolate company, Camino, and has since held senior roles with Fair Trade International. Tia is currently the chair of the Organic Technical Advisory Committee with CFIA, a voting member of the Organic Standards Technical Committee, the Organic Representation on the Agile Regulations Agriculture Canada Roundtable, and the lead on organic data with the Government of Canada. Thank you all for joining us today. Please take it away, Tia.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we are going to delve right in because we have a lot of content to cover this morning, and we wanted to bring kind of the experts to the table to raise awareness to an issue that we've been working on now for more than a year, since last May, and it is on the impact of the new guidance, which would affect Food, Feed, and Seed Acts with the federal government, which would essentially look to deregulate genetic engineering. And so the impact on organic is going to be the focus of today's session. But as we're not experts on a practice that is banned, is prohibited in organic, we wanted to also bring in the experts, which is Heather Lee from the Canadian Biotech Action Network. So we'll kick off with Heather, and she can kind of give you an overview of GMOs currently in Canada, as well as sort of what the current issue is that we're up against, and then we'll delve further into organic and our action plan.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Get in here. So just as a backgrounder, these are the GM foods on the market in Canada. You can find this on CBAN's website. Like was said, it's the Canadian Biotechnology Action Network. I will just start here. Okay, so there's two federal departments are making significant changes to the regulations of GM foods and crops by removing regulations from many future foods and crops. This is unfortunate, as Canada's regulation of GM foods and crops is already weak. For example, departments rely heavily on corporate data to conduct their safety assessments. Now departments are proposing to remove regulations from future food and crops and not assess the corporate science at all. So currently, as you all probably know, Canada does not have a mandatory label for consumers to identify GE foods. The federal government also doesn't track what GMOs are on the market, but it does approve GMOs for release onto the market, so it knows what GMOs are legal to sell in Canada. When I say GMOs, I mean genetically modified organisms. When I say GE, I mean genetic engineering, GM, genetically modified. They're all kind of meaning the same thing. So this is until now. So the government knew what GMOs were legal to sell in Canada kind of until now with these proposed changes, because some new GMOs could be released without anyone, even the government and farmers, knowing that they exist. Currently, the changes proposed apply to GM plants and to GM seeds, but soon these changes could apply to GM animals and other GMOs. So, as the slide shows, these are the two departments that are responsible and involved. And bureaucrats in these departments have spent the last few years meeting to develop proposals for GE foods and GE seeds. In 2021, the departments hosted separate consultations for the proposals. The proposals pertained to the regulation of novel foods, which is the one on the far left, and novel foods is a category that includes GM foods, and pertain to the regulations of seeds, which is the one in the middle. The CFIA, which is the column on the right, is also responsible for making sure that all animal feeds are safe for animals, and it has started to look at making changes to its regulations to be in line with what Health Canada is doing. I'll circle back to GE Foods at the end of my part of the presentation. The slide also shows what ministers are responsible for what changes. And while much of the work of the CFIA is also the responsibility of the Minister of Health, the Minister of Agriculture is responsible for the Seeds Act and its regulations and the Feed Act and its regulations. So you might be asking, what are the proposed changes? So the proposals are not to regulate, but to allow companies to self-regulations. And it removes regulations for safety to the sole responsibility of companies without the non-responsibility of the government. So instead of food safety assessments conducted by Health Canada and environment safety assessments conducted by regulators of the CFIA, product developers would regulate their own products. They would do their own risk assessment without any government oversight and any government safety checks. There would be no government approval process for these GM foods and GE seeds. They wouldn't pass by any government desk, so they could be put on the market without anyone, even the government, knowing that they're there. So what Health Canada is doing is it's asking companies to voluntarily be transparent and notify the public of any new unregulated GMOs it's bringing to the market. The changes would apply to GMOs that have no foreign DNA, and that's possible through these new techniques of gene engineering, or gene editing, sorry. It's important to note that some gene-edited foods will not have foreign DNA, so this is not an exemption for all GM or gene-edited products, but most of them. Also, in theory, if GM products that don't have foreign DNA can skip regulations, we can assume that biotech industry will put the research on developing the products that they know will not be put through regulations, which can mean in the future that all GMOs go completely unregulated in Canada. And I can't stress that enough, unregulated in Canada. So while there are still regulations that generally apply to modified food and seeds, they will no longer be regulated like any GMOs that are currently on the market. And even though, as I stated earlier, there's no product labels for GMOs, Canada does have a list of novel foods and plants with novel traits that includes GMOs in them, and that's how CBAN can find out and put that list you saw at the beginning of what GMOs are currently on the market. We do that by looking at the government list, doing research, and doing investigations. So those lists allow us to go and tell customers and Canadians what GMOs are out there. If you're a farmer, your seeds might not be labeled as GMO when you're looking to buy seeds, but you can refer to the government websites to see what GMO seeds have been approved for the market to determine if the seeds you're looking at might be genetically engineered. Due to the proposed changes, the list of approved products may not include all GMO seeds on it. So that the changes could mean that GMO seeds and foods could be sold legally but not appear on any public lists at all. So, last slide. Oh, yeah, last slide. Yeah, so. Is there like a magic to this? I don't know what to do. Last slide. It's coming up.
Can you advance it on?
Can anyone advance this?
Is it right? Oh yeah, it's
What is
not
happening
there.
there? Oh my gosh,
Okay.
we're going way ahead there. This is great.
Go
This is
back
supposed
one.
to be a time.
We missed
back
one.
a slide.
There you go.
Yay! Thanks everyone. So, yeah, you take that now. Yeah, okay, great. So, as I stated earlier, both Health Canada and the Canadian Food Inspection Agency held public consultations on these proposed changes in 2021. And CBAN and everyone here were part of the consultations, and over 100 groups of environmentalists, health advocates, farmers, and small business owners all signed a letter expressing their concern over the proposed changes. There was also an opinion research poll done in 2021 that showed regulatory exemptions are opposed by Canadians by a margin of nearly 2-1. And this shows the majority of Canadians do not want to give up public oversight of GM food safety. So after all the consultations that went through, this year we're beginning to see the results of the consultations. And what's happened now is Health Canada and the CFIA are moving ahead without making any changes to their proposals. Actually, on May 18th of this year, Health Canada published changes to its technical document, which is called a guidance document, which actually is used to implement and interpret the regulations. So companies as of May, have already been given the direction that if their food comes from a GM plant that has no foreign DNA in it, the company can decide if the food needs a government risk assessment. The CFIA is ready to do the same with GE seeds, and they could announce their updates to the technical documents any day now, and they've also announced they're making changes to its technical documents for feed. So this is the interesting part. When Health Canada published the changes to their technical documents in May, they also announced they were going to go and change the regulations to reflect the technical documents. And this is important to mention for two reasons. The first being, this is the wrong order. Like, the regulations are the important law, and the regulations are now being guided by changes to a technical document that was updated by bureaucrats through a bureaucratic process. And this process does not conform to a solid democratic process and lacks a lot of scrutiny and oversight. I see some head shaking. I agree. So this is actually, in a really weird way, good news, because it means that the regulations are still being reviewed by Health Canada, so there's still time to change this. And also, ministers can actually have the authority to halt and reverse any changes bureaucrats made to technical documents. So this is great for us. We can still do something. But unfortunately, the biotech industry will be working very hard to solidify the changes and these regulatory amendments. So we have a huge fight ahead of us. We have already been talking to bureaucrats for 2 years about how and why the changes are dangerous and non-transparent. So the departments are well aware of it, and now I need to go to the ministers and let them know what we think, very urgently. So now I'm passing no, he has the clicker. He's keeping the clicker, and I think Tia's gonna say something now. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Heather. Thanks. All right. Let's see if I've got the power of the clicker. Okay.
Don't do what I did.
But it doesn't show here.
No, wait, you need to
No.
wait.
Oh, it'll come in?
Yeah.
All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna delve into how this specifically affects organic. You gave a very good overview of sort of the background of what's been happening, but specifically organic, this will really cause a lot of problems to our $9 billion industry, because we will not even know what is GE on the market for seeds, for feeds, and for food. And that means that we can't even know whether it will comply with the organic standards, despite all best attempts by industry. So we have been meeting multiple times. We've had multiple listening sessions with CFIA, the Plant Biotechnology Branch, or the biosafety, I prefer to call them biotech, but essentially where we've expressed our concerns. We tried to work from a place of, are you just not aware of what's happening? So we, essentially the presentation I'm giving to you here today is what we presented to them, saying, we must ensure that genetically engineered products does not undermine other forms of sustainable agriculture. Organic is a federally regulated program, and so you can't have one division of CFIA hurting another area that also CFIA regulates. Plus, we're a $9 billion industry and the fastest growing form of agriculture, and 2/3 of Canadians want organic. So we also said, how are consumers' rights going to be protected and informed through this process, which after last year, if any of you followed the work that we did to try and stop the glyphosate maximum residue level increase, which was proposed in a very short process, we also kind of hammered on this issue, and it was right before an election, so maybe our time was great that we were able to expose it and we got the media involved. But essentially, CFIA turned around and said, we are going to stop the maximum residue level increase, and we're going to put forth a transparency agenda. So this is what's happening under the transparency agenda, ironically, is that we're going to see even less transparency for consumers and industry. Did I do that?
Yeah.
Okay. So of course we have said to them, there's a lack of concrete proposals on how you're going to protect the organic industry and consumers' rights. We've met with them on all these dates. We've had another one since, and where it's kept going is just rolling all in the wrong direction, where they've actually said, they think probably in the next couple days, they're gonna actually put out their announcement on the guidance for the Seed Act. And they came to us, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and they said, actually, we're gonna do the same thing for the Feed Act. but we have to launch our public consultation, which is a bureaucratic process for 4 weeks or something. So regardless of all of everything that we've said, they have very clearly said, sorry, this is not our department's responsibility. It is only our concern to look at food safety. This is nothing to do, we can't talk to you about anything that would impact your market, which is obviously not an okay response from our perspective. So traceability and transparency, this is our position, of course. This should be required and it should be publicly available as it currently is. And of course, the other part of their argument was that they wanted to make sure that they were aligned with their trading partners and what they're doing in regards to genetically engineered regulation and guidance, and only focusing on the United States, which is of course the home of where we see most GMOs approved. I have been meeting with the EU to find out, because there's also a move happening in the European Union to move in this direction. And when I met with the EU officials involved in organic, they said there's only one GE product available in Spain, which is corn. So they don't have to worry about the contamination issues that we do, because they've never been approved, although they're looking at doing a grand sweeping legislation over there as well. So I want to just make sure everybody's on the same page in regards to how organic works and why this is going to affect our sector more than anybody. The Canada Organic regime is overseen by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. We have certification bodies who are accredited to make sure that there's compliance with the organic standards. And of course, there is conformity verification board bodies that are overseeing to make sure the certification bodies are doing their job and playing a role with Canadian Food Inspection Agency. When it comes right down to it, it is clearly stated in our organic standard that GE is prohibited. And we just did the standards update in 2020, December 2020. They came into the new ones. You had 1 year to kind of adhere to them. So all of this has been updated to expand our definition to include making sure that CRISPR is noted. Because the big thing that's happening, it's a bit mischievous in the way that it's happening, is that they're saying the definition of GMO is only those that have DNA splicing. CRISPR technology and some of the new products with novel traits do not have discernible DNAs in it. And so they're saying they're conventional-like, and they won't fall under the legislation at all. So that's even that other high level that we're like, well, it's banned, how do we ever know what is genetically engineered? So moving on, just to highlight that what is sort of the method that's currently in place to be able to monitor for GMOs, and what is the requirements. Obviously, every operator needs to try and source organic seed and to start the process of growing. And of course, the certification bodies, they maintain the records to demonstrate that they're sampling when they go out to do their annual audits. Organic farmers, of course, we already are in a land that has GMOs, which Heather had said, these are the approved GMOs that can be grown in Canada. Organic farmers have to create an 8-meter buffer in order to protect from pesticide residue, and a 3-kilometer buffer from any, if you know that your neighbors have GE crops in their area. So already there's more on cost and more land that needs to be dedicated. In addition, they're required to implement other mitigation strategies, such as physical barriers, border rows, strategic testing, delayed planting in order to make sure that you're not in a pollination period at the same time as the GE products next door. So there's a lot that the organic sector is already doing to try and ensure that there's no contamination and that they do not lose their organic certification. The certification body also requires pre-harvest and post-harvest testing of any product if there is a reason to suspect that the organic product has come into contact with a prohibited substance, method, or ingredient. Well, at this point, if this moves ahead, everything will be suspect. And so how much testing will be required? And just to highlight that this is not cheap. To do GE testing, on average, the costs are around $350 per sample. So, you know, as a precaution, we can see that the CBs will do their job right to make sure that there is a customer assurance that there is no GMO or no GE in these products. All the costs will go down to the farmers, which of course will increase the cost of organic food ultimately. And of course, it is a huge potential of loss of markets. I'll go a little bit further into that. But essentially this goes beyond us just being concerned about the farmers and the industry. This is about putting product out onto the market that there's no recall ability, no ability to know what's the long-term consequences to biodiversity. And Canada is a signatory to the biosafety protocol, the Cartagena protocol, which is about taking a precautionary approach. And this is going to totally change that situation. When I have spoken with our colleagues in the other organic associations across the country, in the EU, when they did have some GEs that were looking at being introduced, their cost on average was around 14 to 20,000 euros. And currently, just to highlight that the products that people are trying to avoid contamination with in Canada is canola, soybeans, and corn. But we've had other examples where there has been contamination escapes, and that was with flax, triphid. It happened a couple years ago where our products got contaminated by GE flax, and that the European Union immediately stopped all imports from Canada. Prices dropped even after they stopped banning it. Prices dropped in Canada of organic from $11 to $2 to $3 a bushel. It had a long-term impact on what they could get on the marketplace. And this is, I think, a huge point. Canadian authorities are still trying to track down the farmers who planted these triphids. And while it's illegal to sell the GM flax, it is legal for farmers to grow it as long as they disclose it. How messed up is that? So moving on, because we've been having a lot of conversations with our government counterparts, trying to highlight that the US, we can't just turn around and sell to the US if the EU bans our products. And they have been doing a lot of additional testing in the EU, but you can see by the chart here that the EU is a huge percentage of our sales. And the US also grows many of the same crops for export to the EU. So we can't just turn around and sell to the US. The EU is a hugely important market for organic, and we need to maintain that. We're on to the last bit. So here's the outstanding questions that we've posed to the government. How will the proposed paths that they've provided in these guidance documents not lead to false representation, as the proposed guidance will make it very hard and difficult to achieve the organic standards and very costly? Also, how will these GE products be tracked if there is a problem in 20 years' time? The other components is they've committed to a transparency and traceability agenda, and this is not going to be happening in regards to genomic products. So we do want this to be required. If they maintain status quo, you know, it's way better than where they're planning on going, even though I know we'd all like to see more movement in regards to transparency in regards to the science that I use for GE. And that we need alignment of consideration of other important trading partners, not just the United States. So, of course, we want consumers to have the right to know what's in their food. We want to make sure that they have an informed choice. We also want to make sure that farmers have the right to choose organic seed. And the way that it's moving, they will not even know if they're buying a non-organic, a GE seed, which is prohibited. And for anybody who's ever watched the Percy Schmeiser film, which went out, I think it's on Netflix, so if you want to look at the Percy film, if you have a contamination coming on to your field of GE products, it's a patented technology, you can get sued by the company, right? So we're saying that now all farmers could essentially get sued if there's samples taken from their farm and they realize it's GE. So again, we are really just trying to highlight that we need to make sure that this GE move does not undermine other forms of sustainable agriculture. The federal government has committed to a 30% reduction in pesticides. They've committed to a climate change agenda. This is going in completely the different direction in a way that would really alter our ability to have an organic sector in Canada. And I will pass the baton.
Thank you. I only have one slide. And first, happy Organic Week. This is not a happy topic. We're not happy about this, as you can see. We're very upset. But Happy Organic Week, it's a big week in Canada that Canadian Organic Trade Association is organizing, so please check their website out. There are many opportunities to learn more about organics, GMOs, and all the things that involve the sector. Also, first of all, thank you, Tia, the Canadian Organic Trade Association, Heather, Lucy, the C1 team, for your advocacy. We didn't know about this as a sector, and you guys were the ones bringing this forward, so I appreciate your work over the years to support the organic sector. Nature's Path, organic foods. We are an always organic company. We want to leave the earth and our communities better than we found them. That's our main purpose. We're family owned, we're independent. And we have been following this situation since last year. It's something that we have been very careful about, and we're following because we know that this might turn really bad for all of us, for the whole planet. So since last year, COTA and CBAN have been doing some work about letting people know about what was going on, and we have been amplifying their work. They are the experts. We want to amplify what they're doing. As a company, we want to make sure that we're supporting the advocacy. And we started reposting, amplifying what they're doing, and we saw that after 2 attempts of getting signatures, letting the government know that, hey, this is not okay, and we don't want this, we got a really good response. This topic was a top story for the company in 2021. So if you think about, hey, a product launch or a cool influencer takeover, no. People, this was a top story across the whole, that we have 24 channels on social media. People care about this. That's what we learned. People care about this, they want to know what's going on, and they want to take action. So that's why we're here today. We want to give you the tools and the easy and digestible information. I know that this is a very heavy and technical topic, and sometimes we get scared of the things that we don't know, but today my goal today is just to give you that message. What can I do to help with this situation? So we heard from them. There's an impact, but today I want to say that it's not just an impact to the organic sector and to the farmers, it's actually an impact to the non-GMO sector, to the natural sector, to this association, to CSFA, to these type of events where we celebrate both sectors. So it's a bigger picture situation. And also consumers. We need to know, we have the right to know what are we putting in our bodies as well. So you heard that from them. Today I just want to recap 4 pillars of what do we need to protect. Why are we talking all this? So number 1 is the environment, Mother Earth, our planet, our soil, water, pollinators, our bodies as well. We don't want any contamination. Any crops getting contaminated with GMOs, we don't want that. We want to protect the environment from that. Also, super weeds. Something that sometimes we don't see, but when we go to a park and we see a big glyphosate signage, I get scared. And when I go to the city, they say, hey, actually, it's the only way to eliminate the super weeds is actually with glyphosate. Glyphosate, we know how bad it is for us. There are huge lawsuits in the US against those names that I'm not gonna mention. I'm not gonna give them platform. But yeah, it's happening. So also, because of the super weeds, people need to use more herbicides. So we're gonna increase the use of herbicides in Canada if we keep bringing GMOs that we don't even know or we're not even aware of. Insects are becoming resistant to toxins in GMO crops. Like they're actually saying, hey, I'm a super pest, actually, just like that, mutants. And also our biodiversity loss, like you mentioned that as well. Biodiversity, our beautiful pollinators or monarch butterflies, that's at risk. Why? Because GMOs, in general, they're altering nature. And we don't want that. I don't want that as a Canadian, as a human being, as a company, I don't want that. So that's number 1, that's what I put in there as a number 1 pillar, environment. Number 2, organic integrity. I want to reassure, I want to let you know that organic, right now, in Canada and the US, all over the planet, is the most robust prevention-based system to fight GMO contamination. So that's why we care so much about organic, that's why we're so passionate about organic. You're gonna see my LinkedIn, and I'm always talking about organic, and I'm reposting things. that's the only way. Organic is the only way to prevent, but we are at risk. So we want biotech companies, it should be like this. Biotech companies should be liable for the consequences and the risk of GMOs. They are the ones, not us as citizens, them. And the government should retain their authority over GMO agents, actors. We don't trust the GMO actors. Personally, professionally, we don't trust them. So that's, in terms of organic integrity, consumer trust, all of us here, this beautiful industry, we deserve, farmers, consumers, we deserve to know. We have the right to know what is in our food, like we need to know what we're putting in our bodies. And that also comes to Canada. There's something that you said that people want to know. They care about labeling. They want to know what's there. And we owe them that. We owe them that there should be a public transparency on this, and self-regulation and self-audits. Tell me if you want, do your self-assessment and let me know, or not even let me know because they don't need to disclose anymore. That doesn't work. That's not an option. Self-regulation is not an option for those entities that are just acting against monetary interest. And the last pillar, which is what you mentioned, Tia, money, businesses, Canada, so that's what we need to alert the government and our MPs, our ministers. This is a big money conversation as well. This is something that we are concerned. Organic farmers, if they get any contamination in the crops, they need to discard that. They need to actually, they get decertified. And what does that mean? They're gonna lose money, the farmers are gonna lose money. They're gonna lose all of the efforts over the years during the harvest, during the whole, like the only time of the year that you can do this. And also their land, like their land, their water, their resources. So that's something that it's on them to lose. Canada, our lovely country, if we move forward with this, we're gonna stay behind compared to other countries. We're not gonna take the lead, we're not gonna be leading, we're gonna be actually behind. And this is very disappointing that many other countries are actually banning GMO cultivation. Many other countries. I have a list, we can share later and you can check their websites. I'm not gonna bring any stuff because if you check their website and their social media channels, you're gonna see all the stuff they need to know. But many countries are already banning GMOs, and others are actually requiring mandatory GMO labeling in food. I want that. I want that for my country. I want that for us. So I also, personal story, one of the reasons why I moved to Canada 7 years ago, I only have 7 years here, proud Canadian now, it was because of the love and the passion of Canadian people and the Canadian government for the environment, for environmental protection. That was one of the things that when I was visiting here, I was really attracted to. And this whole situation is actually giving me a different perspective, and it's really disappointing. So I want to share that from the external perspective, how we're perceived, and this is actually going to act in the opposite way. I think it does. I did? My voice?
Or maybe he's cutting you off.
Yeah. Am I speaking too much? Hello, hello, hello. No? No?
Is mine on?
Yeah?
No, mine.
No,
No, you're on.
I'm on? No. Hello? Hello?
Costume change?
Hello? I'm about to finish, so we don't want that for our country. We don't want that for our industry. And as I mentioned before, this is a very heavy topic. It's very technical. I don't want you to get scared. At the beginning, yes, you get scared and say, what are they talking about? What is this? But there is a way. There's a way, and we need to support our experts. We need to support COTA, we need to support CBAM. There's a way forward. You don't need to be an expert in GMOs. You don't need to be an expert in organic agriculture. You don't need to be an activist. Our company, Nature's Path Organic Foods, we are activists with heart. We're not gonna go and fight and say bad things, and we're gonna actually, we want to inspire you. That's why I'm here. I flew from Vancouver to inspire you to take action. So there are some actions, as I mentioned, COTA and CBAM, they got In November, they got 4,000 signatures when we posted about it. Like people telling Health Canada and CFAA, I don't want this. Then Cota posted about it, same petition. They got 2,000, 3,000 signatures as well. They keep getting. We need more. We need more. We need to hear your voice. We want you to speak with your friends, with your colleagues, with your business leaders. Like, hey, this is what Nature's Path and Cota and Sivan are talking about. We should be looking at this. This is a supply chain risk. This is an organic integrity risk. And this is also a marketing and consumer risk that we should be taking care of. So, saying that, again, we don't want to scare you, but we want to give you the tools. This was the whole intention of this presentation, to give you the tools, the knowledge, the tips and tricks of this situation. And also, I want to hear from Tia, like what can we do now as businesses, as individuals, to help you fight this situation with the government. Thank you.
Thanks, Manuel. Should we clap? So I think we're at a very critical time because they have said to us many times it's going to be early fall that they publish the seed regulation. And now they're turning the corner and want to change, not the regulation, the guidance document. The guidance document, which is not changing the regulation. We have at CODA, we're a member-based organic industry association. We're the only one in Canada. If you're not a member, come talk to me. But essentially, we're here to do this work on your behalf to make sure that we can protect and promote organic in Canada and abroad. And I'm a registered lobbyist, and we arrange meetings with all of our members and MPs and senators, et cetera, to make sure that organic can continue to prosper in Canada. So we did become a little activisty because we had to. We started a petition. You can scan it with your QR code and go there right now and sign it. I did an op-ed in the Globe and Mail last Friday, which we've got posted on our website and our social media channels. It is a topic that we're being sensitive about because we are doing everything we can to protect organic and organic consumers and growers and the environment. But we do not want people to give up hope that this is just going to move ahead. We've been able to fight things in the past, and I think we can do this again. But because this is such a big issue, we have recruited a law firm, Gowlings, and we have a government relations firm that is working with us to set up meetings with MPs across the country. So I would encourage you to get involved, sign the petition. We started this petition in the spring, I would say. And since we started the Globe and Mail op-ed and activating the media, now that it's coming out more, every presentation that has been shared with us to date is written confidential, and we've not been able to circulate it or share it with the media, or even barely share it with industry. I got permission to share it with my board of directors. So you can understand all this is happening under a veil, and it's time for us to start exposing what's going on and to make sure that you stand up and make your voice heard. We also, of course, because we're about to take on a huge amount of money in fighting this, we are crowdfunding. So this is the scan code. We've got a Facebook fundraising page that we've set up on the Choose Canada Organic, as well as on our Shopify site where you can donate. We don't care if it's $5, we don't care. You know, we need to try and actually crowdsource this, because I can tell you this was not in our budget nor our plans to have to fight in this way with making sure that things stay status quo. So I would encourage all of you, you've all received a little handout when you came in that explains the issue. We are going to be at our booth at the Canada Organic Trade Association booth, which is booth number 2347. 2347. We haven't set up our booth yet. But please come by, and we've got handouts. If you want these handouts for your stores to alert your customers, you know, we're going to invest hard in this because I think we all have a part to play in protecting organic growers and the earth. So thank you very much for everybody coming. We could, go ahead. We can open it up for questions if, do we have enough time? What time are we at? We're gonna get kicked out of here?
11.
We've got 5 minutes. Yeah, so we have 5 minutes for any questions or clarifying. But I think it's complicated, it's technical. It's technical, but we're happy to answer questions. Go ahead.
I noticed in your crops you never spoke about alfalfa.
That is true.
Alfalfa's a big deal, especially.
Yeah, alpha, did it actually, it went ahead, didn't it?
Oh, it's number 5 for animal feed.
I'm just trying to go back.
It's on, number 5.